Hi everybody, welcome to a new tutorial from Sound for More. It's Leo speaking. Today I'd like to go through all the different pad modes that exist inside your Roland Fantom. Oh, before I start, I would like to remind my viewers to subscribe as it really helps with growing the channel. Okay, thank you very much. So, if you have watched one of my previous tutorial, you will remember that I've created a tutorial where I created a song, where I created patterns, arranged the patterns into groups, and then I put the groups into a song. And so on bank C, 20, position 29, I have that scene recorded with patterns and song. And indeed, if I click play, I'll have that patterns starting in the sequence that I have recorded them. Now, let's click on the pad mode. You have 11 different pad modes. The first one is simple pad. Let's click on it. And this is the default one, which is available when you turn on your Fantom or an initialize, for example, scene. So if you press on pads, you activate sample. And if you press them again on the same pad, of course, you stop them. And of course, you can have them to play together. Of course, and you can continue. You can use, for example, the bank button. You hold that to change the bank number, and also you can use the holder to hold also that playing. And remember, if you want to stop completely the pad sounding, press 4 times the hold button. It's almost like a panic mode for your pad controls. Okay, let's go back to pad mode and let's select node pad. Well, this is quite interesting. The pads change color to these kind of blue color. And if you press the different pads, of course, you will hear different notes playing from different presets. You might be wondering from which presets. Well, press and hold the shift key and press pad mode. And then you go into this nice screen where it shows you for different pads what notes are being played, which, as you can see, I purposely have done that. You can assign different zone for different pads. So in this first pad, I have acoustic piano, which comes from zone 11, but all the others come from zone 10, which is where we have our drum kit. So first pad, it plays a note, D2, which is down here. You can change that with the knob. And as you can see here is zone 11, and also the velocity, which is 100. Okay, and if I press pad 2, you see it changed also the selection, and that is referenced at zone 10 where I have a drum kit. Of course, you can do or use the first function and knob to change the selection as well. Okay, let's click on exit. Let's go back to pad mode. Now let's go to partial switch and select. Now I have this synth, and in my case, this particular synth, actually, if I press on single tone, press none, and then I press on synth, is the wizard lead. Press sample pad mode again, and then let's go back to the partial switch and select. Now you should say that pad 1 and 2 are lit in red, and then you have pad 5, which is lit in yellow, unless of course you have to use them before, and you might have a different selection for the pads on the second row. Now, the first row is used to activate or deactivate partial. So if I press on the oscillator button on the left-hand side of the big knob of the filter, I enter the edit tone, and you can see the different partial here. You have partial 1 and 2, which are active. That is why you have pad 1 and 2 lit in red. And then you have pad 5, which is lit in yellow, which is showing here as selected. So if I press, for example, pad 6, you see it changes the selection to partial 2. If I press pad 7, it will go to partial 3. Now, if I press pad 1, you can see it disabled the first partial. If I press pad 2, I have no partial active, no sound. If I press now again pad 1, I have the first partial on. And of course I can have them both back on. Okay, perfect. So let's click exit again, and let's go back to pad mode. Then you have a DAW control, which I will show you in another tutorial, but it is used to actually control your DAW for the pads. Then we have a zone mute as well, and at this point the colors on the pad should have gone to this yellow oranges color. Okay, and if you press on the pad, you move to the corresponding zone. So for example, in my case, I'm actually playing, I think it's zone 1. So if I press 1, there is no sound anymore. If I press again 1, the sound is back. So very straightforward. Let's go back to pad mode. Similar, you can have solo, okay, instead of mute. I'm not going to show, but it's really straightforward. Then we have keyboard switch group, and this one is quite interesting. Again, the colors of the pad will change to green. Now, if you press number 1, you will see that zone 1 is selected. Then number pad 2, the second one, pad 3, etc., etc. And actually, let me reinitialize these and go back into keyboard switch group. Let me try again. Pad 1. Yeah, that is my preset for the song I created. Pad number 2. Yeah, that's the bass. Pad number 3 should be the pad. Perfect, perfect. Okay, now let's go back to pad mode. Then we have rhythm pattern. Okay, and at this point you should see pads 1 to 6 which are lit, and those will correspond to what you see if you press rhythm in the sequencer, which will correspond to those you see here. Okay, so if I press pad 1, it will play the intro there. And I press stopped, and as you can see, moved to the verse 1, and you should see also the color changing to blue from white to blue, in this case in the pads. Now let's press exit again. Let's go back to pad mode. Now we have pattern, which is really nice. Press on pattern. Okay, in this case, in my case, for this song, I have only 4 patterns. I have recorded pattern, sorry, 4 patterns in 4 different zones. I have recorded on zone 1, 2, 3, and 10. And in this case, I will only see pattern between 1 to 4 at zone. Now, if I press pad 1, it will play that pattern. Of course, you press it again to stop. If I press pad 2, and of course, I press it again to stop it. You might be wondering, what about if I want to turn on and off, for example, patterns which are in zone beyond 4? Well, click and press shift and then pad mode again. You enter this view, and you can see at the moment the pads are selected for this area. So for zone 1 to 4, now you can use the arrow near your display on the right hand side here. You can go right and so on, up and down, and then you can select a different zone, and then you have other patterns which will come available for playing. Okay, now back to pad mode. We have also variation play. So if you click on it, you will see that and you can play now variation of patterns in your pads, which is really, really helpful as well. Now let's go back to pad mode, and this one is my favorite, group play. In the case of the song which I created in the previous tutorial, I created only 3 groups. In this case, the pads are lit only for the first 3 pads because they are the 3 groups. Now, if I press pad 1, it will launch group 1. If I press pad 2, it will stop group 1, and it will play group 2, and so on. And this is very useful if you want to perform live. You create all your pattern, you arrange them in grouping, and then even if you don't want to have a song, you can change between different grouping just pressing on the pad. So let's try. I'm going to improvise a little bit. Let me reinitialize, move back and forth. Let me set group play again, and I should have this synth on zone 12. Perfect. Now let's press the different pads and I move from one group to the other and I play on it. And of course, you can press on the pad again to stop that group that is playing. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the explanation on the different pad modes. And as always, see you at the next tutorial. Thank you very much. Bye.